Hello, this is just giving you some idea of the items that are contained in Train Story, which is part of the Isle of Wight Steam Railway at Haven Street. And there is the building for Train Story itself. It's a large building. It has 5 railway tracks in it, each about 100 metres long. The one on the right is under a cover as well, even though it's not actually within the building. To the left is a grounded body of a carriage, which is preserved as a 1950s holiday home. It came from Thorness, and it's basically there to show people why we've got so many carriages and old rolling stock in Train Story. Around the island, the carriage bodies were used as garden sheds, summer houses, beach chalets, holiday homes. And as time goes on, we have been offered these, and we are restoring them all eventually. This one, however, will not be restored. It's being preserved as a holiday chalet to show people what the condition that these carriages are in when we first received them. This is the entrance foyer to Train Story. And it starts with a welcome video giving you the history of the Isle of Wight Railways, but also the history of the Isle of Wight Steam Railway. In effect started by 3 teenage boys wanting to buy a locomotive. And it's amazing that from that very humble beginning, we've now got this well-recognised steam railway which has won many awards. This mock-up of a carriage shows a film which shows the holiday makers coming to the Isle of Wight in, I think, the late 50s, early 60s. And we sometimes forget just how busy Ryde Pier was, really crowded. The problem was that these crowds were just for basically August and couldn't sustain the steam railways on the Isle of Wight for the whole year. And so what appears to be a bumper time here is only for 4 weeks out of 52. It's no wonder that steam railways on the Isle of Wight were closed down. From 1950 right up until 1966, there was a gradual closing down, first of the rural lines, and then the more major ones. Train Story is of course geared for families, and we have things to entertain children, but also hopefully to inform them as well. In front of you now is the map of the Isle of Wight with the routes of the various railways on it, and the challenge is to follow the track in effect. But by far the star attraction in this part of Train Story is the model of the Calbourne locomotive. Children are invited to come up here to pull a rope to blow the hooter, to move a lever to make an engine sound, and to put pretend coal on a pretend fire. They can also dress up in clothes which we provide for them as engine drivers. This has proven very popular. This is the platform hall, the first hall that visitors come into. The locomotive you're looking at now is a retired steam engine, I could say, and it's been decked out so that people can go into it, into the cab, and learn what the controls are and what they do. Further on the left are our goods train. This is one which we take out roughly once a month, again as a historic display, showing what a goods train used to look like on the Isle of Wight. This is one of our unrestored carriage bodies awaiting restoration. This is one of the original 1864 carriages bought by the Isle of Wight Railway for the ride to Shanklin and Ventnor line. and it was built by the Oldbury Carriage Company of Bromsgrove near Birmingham. And amazingly, we have 5 of these carriage bodies in our possession. This one was sold off round about 1910 and used as a holiday chalet at Thorness. You will see at the top there blue glass, blue and white glass. This is a second-class carriage. It's got 4 second-class compartments. You can just make out a door there. There's another one there, there, and towards the end. But even on second class, they would have that, what seems to me to be a touch of luxury, that beautiful blue and white glass. And those pieces are all original. So that's what it looks like now. What will it look like once it's been restored? The Channel 4 television company were planning a series called Great Rail Restorations, presented by Peter Snow. And they approached our railway, the Isle of Wight Steam Railway, with an offer to contribute a substantial proportion of the restoration of the carriage you've just seen, if we could do it within 6 months. This is a picture of the carriage when it was in a garden of a house in Bembridge. It was given to the railway by Richard Vernon, who was an actor who appeared, for example, in the film Goldfinger, the James Bond film. He played a chap called Smithers, a very distinguished looking gentleman, known for playing very upper-class English roles. As with all of our Oldbury carriages, as I say, we've got 5 of them. They are very distinctive. They have a very low profile roof, very flatter, much flatter than normal. And again, you see this lovely distinctive blue glass. But don't be fooled, this is a reproduction. We couldn't use the original glass because it wasn't toughened. Modern safety regulations require that the glass in railway carriages is toughened glass so that in the event of an accident, it doesn't turn into injury-causing sharp shards of glass. Another feature of Oldbury carriages is that the first class compartment door is 6 inches wider than the second class. You might wonder why that is. Well, it's just a theory, but perhaps it's so that the Victorian ladies' bustles could fit through a bit easier. But it's very distinctive. The other thing is that they're hinged on the right. All the other carriages we have the hinges on the other side. That's just a little difference. As I said, this carriage, 1864 was built. So let's have a look inside the carriages and see what the difference between first and second class is. Well, here I am, sat in the luxury of 1864 first class. As you can see, there's plenty of room. I can stretch my legs out, not even reach the halfway point. There's a beautiful oval table in here, securely fastened to the floor, so that it doesn't fly about in the case of an accident. And it's remarkable to think that a carriage this old could have been travelled in by Lewis Carroll. He visited the Isle of Wight on a number of occasions in the early 1870s, and indeed he wrote The Hunting of the Snark at Sandown, and it's very possible that he might have travelled in this very carriage. So what about second class in 1864? As you'll see, a lot less room, 2 bench seats, and indeed often in second class these wouldn't be upholstered at all. So it's a very different position from first class, but you can see beautiful details, still got the blue glass, got a lovely ceiling and an oil lamp ready to light. I'm going to be looking at the 2 carriages behind me. They're carriages which come as a pair. As you can see, there is a small connecting corridor between the 2. And that makes it unique on the island because we don't have any other coaches or carriages with any corridor in them. But before I talk about the carriages themselves, I want to talk a bit about the railway line that they worked on. That line was the Merston to Ventnor West line, which was opened in 1897 and extended in 1900 to Ventnor West. And as its title suggests, ran from the Merston junction on the Newport to Sandown line and took the railway through a tunnel down through St Lawrence, having passed already through God's Hill and Whitwell. This was only a small line, but it had the best view of any of the island railway lines. As the train came out of the tunnel going towards Ventnor, out of the tunnel before St Lawrence, you had a fantastic view over the sea. You're on a high cliff, in effect being carried along a ledge, and that view was unparalleled with any of the other railway lines on the island. Unfortunately, this line was never profitable, and it was the first to close. Ironically, it was also the last to open. It ran from 1900 to 1952, and as I say, it was the first of the railway lines to close. The carriage on the left was built in 1897. The carriage on the right was built in 1889. On the island, we don't have a royal carriage as such. Although Queen Victoria did travel once by rail to open the new hospital at Ventnor, the coach that she travelled in disappeared decades ago. This, however, is the carriage in which our present Queen travelled when she opened our carriage and wagon workshop in 2004. It's first class. Normally there would be white antimacassars for my head. I'm afraid they're being washed at the moment. They're called antimacassars because there used to be the fashion of using macassar oil in one's hair, and that stained upholstery it came into contact with. And so there were white cotton or linen covers which would just protect the upholstery from that. This is the carriage, as I say, that Queen Elizabeth travelled in when she opened our workshop. It's comfortable, it's like sitting in an armchair, and there's even a carpet on the floor. But I'll now take you through to the rest of the compartment, which is called a school saloon. Well, here we are in the third class saloon. Seating here for I think it's about 23 people, and it's quite comfortable. This carriage was recovered from Newtown when it was taken out of service in 1938. It formed part of a bungalow in Newtown, and when we received it back, actually had a thatched roof, which makes it unique, I think, amongst our recovered carriages. This compartment, when it was taken out of service in 1938, actually became a bungalow on Gurnard Marsh. Again, it was recovered by us when it was no longer needed for that purpose. And in this part of the compartment, again third class, the saloon seating can accommodate something like 15 to 18 people, depending on how large they are and how intimate they are with each other. But the true secret of this push-pull set is what is behind me in the guard section. Now, the guard section, by definition, is where the guard travels, or the porter, when he wasn't collecting tickets. The advantage of this train was that they didn't need to have the stations manned, because the porter could be, or the guard could be on the train, walking up and down and collecting fees and checking tickets in the two compartments. Luggage would be stored in the area behind me, but it's in the area behind me that the unique feature of this carriage lies. So that's where I'll go now. Now, normally on a railway, at the end of the line, the terminus, the locomotive which has been pulling the carriages has to uncouple and then move to the back of the train, recouple to the carriages, and then in reverse pull the carriages back the way it came. It has to do that because obviously the driver would have a very obstructed view if it was going in reverse from the front of the train. And indeed there are rules about one's speed if one was doing that. The advantage of this push-pull set is that there are a set of duplicate controls at this end of the train which the engine driver can use to operate the locomotive, even though the locomotive remains at the what I would call the front end. But I'll just explain what the controls are here. But you'll see from this sign here that there's a bell system so that the fireman who remains in the locomotive knows what's going on and knows what to do. And he too can signal the driver in the event of an emergency. But I'll start with the controls down here. That is not a steering wheel. That is in effect the brake for this coach. That would be operated by the guard and would lock the brakes on for this coach, effectively immobilising it. To the left there, that is part of the Westinghouse braking system, again operated by the guard so that he can perform an emergency stop with it if necessary. The controls that the driver would use are here on the left. In the corner there is the main regulator. It operates by compressed air and in effect it controls the regulator from here. Up here you can see that there is a dial which registers where the regulator is so that the driver knows how open the throttle is in effect. The regulator allows more steam to the engine. The wider open it is, the faster the train goes. Also here is the system for the actual pneumatic air system that links the two together. I understand in practice that because of things going wrong, it was not unknown for the driver to sit here and not control the throttle at all, but by the bell push, there, signal to the fireman how fast and how open he wanted the regulator. So there were times when this didn't work perfectly. These are actually dummy controls. They don't work anymore. And there is one thing missing, and that is there's a small whistle on the outside. There would have been a lever there, a valve, for the engine driver to blow the whistle when approaching level crossings and other hazards like that. Various dials up here measuring the steam pressure in the steam chest, the steam pressure for the engine, and also the pneumatic pressure for the controls at this end of the train. Every year we try and have something new at Train Story, whether it be a new exhibit or whatever. And in the last 12 months we've had something small put in, which is proving very popular. And it's this, it's just a signal lever that actually operates a real signal. And what has amazed us is the enthusiasm which children are using that. But more than that, I've seen pensioners using this with huge smiles on their faces. And it's amazing that something so simple is proving so attractive. Below the signal is a platform indicator. This was on Ryde Pier and it notified the driver of the train which platform he was going to be directed onto. There were 4 platforms there when the railway was fully operating, and that number was just to let him know basically where he was going, even though, let's face it, he couldn't do anything about the direction, could he? I hope you found what I've had to say of interest, and perhaps we'll have you here one day as a visitor, perhaps as a member, or perhaps as a volunteer. Thank you.